part of acceptance is letting go of that image that there's going to be a time when life is perfect and easy and beginning to actually step out of fantasy into reality, which is life is a mixed bag. So acceptance is not about giving up. It's not about just, abandoning all the different things that you might do or care about in regards to your health. It's also not about pretending that symptoms are going to last forever and that your life is over. It's also not forcing positivity or an invitation to like or celebrate your symptoms. Sometimes as we explore things, we can organically start to get curious enough that we find something interesting within the symptoms, but none of this is something that we have to try to do. When we move into acceptance and we move into these practices, we're kind of like opening this portal in ourselves and we get to see what naturally comes up in relation with our symptoms. Acceptance is just simply saying yes to what is here right now in this moment. So it's staying with the hard thing instead of abandoning ourselves when things are hard. And this for me was monumental on my journey. And I had such a history of abandonment in my family and in my life. And, one of the huge aha moments I had in my journey was actually how often I was abandoning myself and how often I was running away from myself. And this work of acceptance was this real coming home to myself. It's like, okay, like what would it be like to stay with myself in this hard thing instead of running away and trying to fix it and trying to make it different or pushing it away? So acceptance is meeting sensations with presence instead of resistance. Acceptance is living in this nuance that there's often grief and there's anger and there's tenderness around what is up in our body or in the world in our life. And there's also care, and we can bring in belonging. So part of, this limbic system hijack or what so many of us experience as nervous system dysregulation is that there is this intense black and white thinking. And so there's this, way of looking at things where it's like, okay, well, it has to be this or it has to be this, or, this is right and this is wrong. This is good and this is bad. And part of the work that we do together, and part of the way we can see that our nervous system is actually moving into more fluid, more regulated states, is that there is a lot of room for nuance. We're not so triggered if people have different opinions or if life isn't exactly so. We're able to have a symptom and feel grief about it and then also see some care or beauty or tenderness in it. We're not stuck in this rigid way of just trying to get away from things towards some imagined place of paradise where everything is easy. Part of acceptance is letting go of that image that there's going to be a time when life is perfect and easy and beginning to actually step out of fantasy into reality, which is life is a mixed bag. It's hard. Things are painful. We're aging. There's gonna be bumps along the road. We're not likely not gonna have a perfect body no matter how deeply we try to manifest it or visualize it in different ways. We might find a lot of openness and joy and love and beauty, and there's also a fact that, we change and we don't know. There's so much mystery around the body, so how can I cultivate things like acceptance that allows me to be here as a witness for the full picture and not just the parts that I think are acceptable or tolerable. So this final piece is so important to me, which is when we drop into deeper acceptance, we can provide care for ourselves in the present moment. And for me, this is really important. So I remember a time when I had a huge wave of exhaustion come up. And I was so scared because, of course, the first thing I thought of when this exhaustion came up was like, oh my gosh, like I know I'm gonna go into a period of fatigue. And so as soon as it came up, it was like, a million triggers going off in my body of adrenaline. And it's like I just watched myself and it was like I would not let myself rest. I just had all of these images that it was going to turn into something terrible. And so I was so alarmed. And then it was like, what do I do? And then I'm confused about what I'm going to do. And, all the layers that come. And then later on in my journey, I remember it happening again. And, it was when I had cultivated a different response in my body and I remember the exhaustion coming, and I remember my old response. Um, and it really moved me to realize, just how, like in that moment in the past, there was no willingness to care for myself. I didn't even consider letting myself lie down. I just wanted to be away from the feeling as fast as possible. And when it happened again, then I allowed myself to rest and I made that rest spot beautiful. And I let myself let go of the guilt and the story and the images and all that came with that. And I allowed myself to be cared for and nourished, which is really what I have always wanted in a deep level in my life, especially in my child parts. And so I was able to give myself that without running away or blame or neglect or pushing or judging. And so this is what we want. We want to actually hear what is your body asking for in different ways. And it might not be about rest, but usually there is something in here. And if we're not accepting, we can't actually hear what the need is. We're just on the treadmill running again and again.